Hello again and welcome back to my channel. Today we are making a knit sports bra as you see here from the Simplicity pattern 8560. We are working on view C with a crisscross back detail and a hook and eye back closure. Unfortunately I can't show it on because mom did not feel like being in a video, but I can tell you it worked out really well and it was a lot of hard work, but it was a beautiful bra. For this project, you will need 1 yard of 60-inch wide fabric with at least a 50 to 60% stretch from salvage to salvage, 1 1/4 yard of 1.5 inch wide elastic, and a bra closure. So my suggestion is after you cut out your pattern, you are going to want to separate them into 2 different stacks, one for your outside and one for your lining, because sooner or later you're going to get confused. So you have cut 4 fronts, 4 sides, and 4 backs. You want to put them in pairs. They should be opposites of each other and put it in one stack, and in the other pair you put them in another stack. So you have 1 stack for your outside and 1 stack for your lining, and you should have 1 number 6, which is going to be your band that's going to go all the way around your waist. Taking both your number 1 pieces, matching them right sides together, you want to sew from the large dot all the way down that seam and back stitching at the large dot. Bring your number 2 piece, which is your front side section, to the front, and matching the notches, you want to sew along that curved edge, and it may take some maneuvering, some pinning, and some stretching to get it to fit, but as long as you have those 2 seams matched, those notches matched, and the edges matched, you can sew along that curve. And yes, I want to acknowledge the fact that my glorious seams look terrible because this fabric is terrible, and then the thread that I used was supposed to be stitch thread, and it did not work either. So I fought with this fabric, so do not judge me on my stitching. When you get done with that, you want to also press your seams towards the center, and of course do not forget to trim those seams as well. Take your straps, which are pieces 13 and 14, and you want to fold them in half with right sides together and then stitch along that edge, but make sure that you are leaving the ends open because you're going to have to turn them later. You want to make sure that you sew dot to dot, and yes, for some of these I transported to a double stitch because that kind of helped with the stretching and the issue with my thread. Don't judge me. After you have trimmed your seams, you want to flip these straps inside out, and then you want to press them to make sure that they lay flat. Looking at your back piece, you can see there's a variety of dots, and this was a little confusing for me, but I think if you follow the way that I put them down, you can see that the straps go in the first set, the 2 middle sets of dots, and then the bottom set of dots, and that's going to be the same way that you're going to have to do it when you insert them to the other side later on in the video. After you put your straps in order, you want to pin them down, and then you want to base stitch all the way across following the dots. Taking your front piece, right side up, you want to place your back pieces right side down on top, and then you want to sew across your shoulder seams. Whew. You're going to want to sew your facings, or as we can call it lining, the same way that you did your outside of your bra, except without the straps. Then with right sides together, you want to pin your facing to the bra, matching your seams and keeping your edges even. Then you're going to want to stitch. You're going to stitch the front, neck, and back edges as you see here, but make sure that you sew over the straps and not over the other dots on the right side. So basically the opposite of what I show you here, but I'll show you an image of what it's actually supposed to look like. You're supposed to leave the right side open, so therefore you can insert the straps on that side. So make sure you don't close that up.
How long are you standing for?
The pattern says that you can also reinforce the seam at the center front, basically stitching over it again to make sure that when you stretch it, it doesn't break. Turning your facing to the inside, you want to press. And trust me, it makes a world of difference because it makes all your seams lay down and you will have issues if you do not press. So press like your life depended on it. Basically, after you've pressed the seam allowance on your right side where we left the opening, you want to lay out your straps in a similar manner as we did for the left side. Then you want to insert the straps basically in the same way as we did on the left side between the dots. And then you want to flip it open and make sure that the edges are even to that seam on the inside. Pin them down, and where the fabric is folded from the pressing is where you're going to want to sew it. You also want to make sure that you trim those inside seams as well. Fold your bra at the shoulder seam, right sides together, bringing your side seams even. In your side seam, looking at it from here, you have a back facing, a back outside, a front side outside, and a front side facing. Pin the two middle pieces, your back and front side, together and sew. Flip the bottom piece, your front side facing, out so that the wrong side is up. Do the same with your back facing, pin them together and sew.
How long are you standing for?
I'll be in the bar for the rest of the week.
In the end, your seam should look like this, and when you flip them together, the side seams should be inside the garment, and you want to do the same with the other side of your bra. Then you're going to want to top stitch that neck and back area. So basically from the V of your neck all the way down the back where the straps are, you want to top stitch that entire area. You also want to baste your armholes and baste across the bottom part of your bra where the band would go. Take piece number 5, which is your armhole binding. You want to fold it right sides together and you want to stitch across that notched edge. Then you want to press under 1/4 of an inch on the unmarked edge of your binding. Looking at the armhole on the bra, with right sides together, you want to pin your binding to the armhole edge, placing a small dot at the shoulder seam on top, then matching the remaining seams. You're going to have to stretch it to fit, but if you put 3 or 4 different pins in there in various different locations in your binding, and that'll help you be able to distribute that ease and let you know where you're going to have to stretch to get it to fit. Now, taking your binding, you want to flip it to the inside and make sure that that pressed edge is covering the previous stitches, and you want to pin it as close as possible to help you be able to sew and keep that binding in place. And then you want to sew as close as possible to the previous stitches that we just made. Now you may be thinking, oh, she's going to do such a good job and she's sewing so close to the edge, it's going to look lovely. No, let me show you. My first attempt was terrible. My second attempt was better, but it's all a learning process, and now I know how to do it better for next time. So just take this as a learning process and don't beat yourself up over it if it doesn't look perfect. Taking piece number 6, you want to press under at 1/2 of an inch on the unmarked edge of your casing. Then with right sides together, you want to pin the casing to the lower edge of the bra, matching the centers and making sure that your dots are matching the side seams. And yes, you're going to have an inch or two that's going to be extending past the bra. You're also going to want to trim about 1/4 of an inch of your seam, making sure not to clip your casing, and if you need to do a double seam, go for it. Press your casing away from the bra, and then you want to fold the ends of your casing right sides together. Folding out that seam allowance, you want to pin your edges together and then sew across that seam allowance. making sure not to go past that dot or the edge of your bra. Then you want to trim your seams and make sure you do not clip your bra. Take your bra casing, and in the same way that we did the arm binding, you want to make sure that the pressed edge is covering the previous stitches, pin it, and then you want to sew from the other side across the previous stitches on the casing waistband.
How long you standing for?
Taking your elastic, you want to attach a safety pin and feed it all the way through that casing.
That's good. I'm going out with some friends later. If you want to come. Okay. I'll see you later.
With the right side end of your elastic, take your bra enclosure with the hook and trim and measure it to the size of the elastic. And don't worry about the way that it looks because it's going to be covered over in the end. Pin your bra enclosure to the top of your elastic so that your hooks face inward. Sew over the elastic close to your hook ends and then trim the excess from under the hooks. Turn under your casing by 5/8 of an inch and press. Feed your elastic back into the casing and then use a needle and thread to slip stitch the casing over the end, making sure to keep the hooks on the outside.
In the bar for the rest of the week.
That's good. I'm going out with some friends later. If you want to come.
Taking the left side of your elastic with your eye side of the bra enclosure, pin it to the underside of the elastic so that the eyes are facing away from the inside of the bra. Sew as close to the eyes as possible and trim away the excess. Turn under the casing at 5/8 of an inch, press, and feed your elastic back into the casing. Using a zipper foot or whichever foot feels easiest for you, sew across that pressed edge. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something new, and make sure to tag me on Instagram if you make this because I want to see. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you feel like it or if you want to see more. You have a lovely evening, folks.